Wisdom Guest Edition. And today I'm joined by the incredible Ruth Amos, who I will be adding to the live now. I can't wait to tell you more about her and to hear all about her story. But for a bit of background, Ruth is the most incredible person. Her career in engineering started at the grand old age of 15. Well, welcome, Ruth.
Hi.
Ruth.
Hi.
I'm bigging you up about to get started telling all about you. I'm well excited for this. You've no idea.
Yay. Oh, it says I can share this too. Okay. Shall I share the video? Yes. Oh, I think I have to like send it people. Okay, cool. There we go. Yay. Hello. Good evening.
Your kids invent stuff today, right?
Well, I'm in the workshop. Yeah, the workshop's so cool. In the bottom of the garden. So,
It's really cool. I can't wait to hear more about it, but I'm just going to do a little intro because everyone's got to know who Ruth is. But they don't know already, of course, because I mean, you've been on the one show, you've been everywhere, which is so cool. So you started your career in engineering at 15 when you were working on a design technology project, which I hope you'll tell us all about. But you go on to invent stair study and patent this and go to take it to market, and you have this is a successful business and one of many successful businesses. And then you go on to try and inspire young people, especially girls that want to do engineering and do kids invent stuff with your fellow young engineer Britain, Shawn. And then you go on to do girls drill and amazing workshops. I can't wait just to like drill into your story, like your passion for it.
I liked your little pun there. That was good. Yeah. Drill into the story. Yes.
I have to do the drill thing.
Oh yeah, of course.
I can't wait to just learn more about the nuance of your story, of course, because it's so exciting. And of course, I've been seeing you do so many cool things because we've got to be judges together at Big Bang. So like you were still also like spending a lot of your time going back and giving back to the thing that you competed in as a teenager. I mean, incredible. A lot of people are saying such lovely things in the comments. Anyway, I'm so excited. So take me back. You're 15. Let's go on a journey of Ruth.
Yeah, was quite a long time ago now.
No.
But yeah, I didn't, I suppose I didn't really understand engineering then. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And yeah, my teacher, I mean, so many of us within engineering talk about how someone inspired us into that career. And for me, it was my teacher, my resistant materials teacher. He was just one of those people that could get the best out of everyone. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, really inspiring.
I do know what I mean.
So yeah, I chose my GCSEs. At that point, I didn't want to be an engineer. I didn't ever think I'd ever be an inventor or anything like that. And as part of my kind of options, I chose resistant materials, and I had to design a jewelry box, and I didn't want to do that, so I dropped a little bit in class and was like, no. And yeah, my teacher challenged me to design something to help his dad go up and down his stairs, and yeah, ended up being, people say like, oh, it was life-changing, but it was genuinely life-changing. Like, I would not be sat here in the workshop doing what I do if it wasn't for that project and being an engineer for Britain and all of those things. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Many awards. I mean, I literally was going to keep a list of your awards, but there's just so many.
Because I'm really old. I've been doing this for so long.
God, I was like, I was like, I can't memorize this list. So many awards.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I feel like it's so surreal when people, I mean, it's really lovely when people recognize either the product or the work that you do, but again, it's like, yeah, I am just part of a much bigger team of people who are doing awesome things. So yeah, but it's really nice.
Cool. But without your resistant material teacher and having that pivotal moment, I believe you're going to be a lawyer. So I mean,
yeah,
that couldn't be like more of a juxtaposition of like very technical, and you're very hands-on as an engineer because you're an inventor as well. You make stuff. Like, tell us about more the making stuff, because I mean, engineering can go so many different ways, and so many people already know how broad engineering is. But you are an inventor. You're a maker. Like, I want to know how that process works. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, like the word inventor was engineer was something I really struggled with, which is why I quite like inventor, because you're right, like engineer is so broad, and whenever I talk to someone about engineering, I'm like, there will be a job in engineering for you, because it encompasses so many things. And yeah, oh, Frankie's here. Hi, Frankie.
It's so
Oh my
many
word,
lovely
I've been
comments
seeing some of Frankie's
already.
welding. I'm like, oh, very excited.
So many
But
people saying how much you've inspired them. I mean, this is incredible.
oh, honestly, I think that, do you know what it is? I think it's the fact, like, I try and share as much of the things that that I'm doing, more for the fact that I wish that I'd seen the job I do growing up, because I just never thought that was a thing. Do you know what I mean? And I pretty much every day think of how close I came to not doing this job. And so the reason that I'm so enthusiastic and I'm so grateful for people like you as well who share what the work they're doing is, I think so many young people like need to see that. They need to understand what that is actually about, if that makes sense. So yeah, so it's really nice when people say, because it's weird, isn't it, like putting things on the internet? It feels a bit weird
Oh,
at
yeah,
times. You're
of
like,
course, you
oh,
should put things on the
oh.
internet. And I really I want to go back to the question because inventor, like you were
Yeah,
talking about that
sorry,
as a
inventor, got
title.
distracted. Yeah,
Because
yeah. So
first of all, that is wild. I think I'm a grown up. And you're the first inventor I think I've ever met. You're actually titled inventor and you like invent brand new things and you make them and you sell them and you're a businesswoman. Tell me more about what that title means to you and that journey of being an inventor.
yeah, I think more people should call themselves inventors. I meet a lot more
Yeah.
people, and every time I meet someone like, oh, I've got this product, I'm like, you should be an inventor. Call yourself an inventor, because when I was growing up, I thought everything had been made. I thought everything had already been invented, and I realized that that's just not true. And if more of us call ourselves inventors, when I thought of inventor and
Uh-huh.
an inventor growing up, I thought of like Doc from Back to the Future, which, don't get me wrong, I
Same,
love
that
it.
unbelievable image. The hair like that, the lab.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, I can't be an inventor then. So that's why I'm like, when I see you, I'm like, call yourself an inventor. But there are so many people who are solving problems and coming up with amazing ideas, whether they're, products or new discoveries. I'm like, constantly, there are so many amazing like things happening, and they're being done by people like you and me. Like I feel like that was something that I didn't really understand, and it was only as I started to meet more kind of female engineers, or I started to meet more people who, I don't know, I just had a very set view of what an engineer was in my head, and that's just not what an actual engineer is. It's so vast, so broad. And yeah, so for me, I've kind of wanted to reclaim that kind of inventor title back, and I'm encouraging as many people as possible to do the same. If you design and make things, if you problem solve, like, you're an inventor, and we should talk more about that, because they're all the skills that young people coming through education today need. They're the sort of things, all the things we can do, like better than robots, better than AI. They're the sort of things that are actually make us human and employable and have jobs.
It's the value add, isn't it? Like you come up with something that solves a problem, and for you, like obviously your resistant material teacher set you the challenge and said, do something that helps. And I guess that's what we're always doing. We're finding that person, maybe that person in our community, that person in our circle, something that we see, and we're trying to solve that problem. And in doing that, we add value, and then we're engineers and inventors. I'm going to stop stealing
Yeah,
inventor now.
see,
I
go
love
for it. But this is it. And I think, young people are born creative and inventors. And at some point, we kind of get it stamped out of us,
it.
which is why for us kids, invent stuff is so important, because young people have amazing ideas and they see the world
Yeah.
differently. And I think that's something that we really need to kind of nurture and celebrate. And that's kind of the whole thing behind kind of the kids invent stuff work. But yeah, I mean, so many of the things that I'm kind of involved with are just things that I wish I had when I was younger, or, I just think I feel very lucky to have had so many experiences. Like, I understand the
Mm.
privilege. My dad, when I said I wanted to have a go at welding, my dad had a very old welder in the back of his garage and let me have a go. And I'm like, we need to be doing more of that. And I'm really lucky that so many kind of businesses or people have just said, yes, we should do that. I'm very much a doer. So, you
Yeah.
and my friend Kisha were Googling pictures of girls with drills, and there was that horrific meme where she's got a drill and corn and she gets a hair stuck in the drill and it's horrible. And that's the first like Google ranking when you Google a girl with a drill. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind Girls with Drills, of like, okay, people take pictures with your drills, like we need more pictures of girls with their drills. And then that led on, you know, we had other people saying, oh, I'd love to learn how to use a drill, you know, we want to do more workshops. And it just kind of, yeah, all of these projects have just come from kind of selfishly being like, what would I want when I was growing up? Like, what were the things that I would love to have done and experienced, or what were the things that I was lucky enough to experience? So that's where a lot of those things come from. And I think that I think that there should be, you know, more people showing off their workshops, like where they make things, whether that's in a bedroom or if they have a shed in the garden or whatever it is. I think so many people make and are creative and they like hide it away, and I'm like, no, I want to see it all.
I love it. But I think we got to talk about that making part a bit more, because like so much of what we do, we don't really like, well, I don't know, I'm a civil engineer, so that's my professional background, and a lot of it is all the things that happen before, and a very, like, the duration of construction is much smaller in comparison to like the process that goes before, when we plan it and we go and talk to stakeholders. But you get to make things all the time. So tell us about what happens before and after. Like, is there a process? Is there a way that you make sure that before you make things, like I remember my TT teacher telling me, measure twice, cut once. Like, what do you do before to make sure that you are, you know, you're making something that's going to be right? Or is there a process? I want to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't always measure twice. Things don't always fit. I think when you're making things, like, things go wrong. Particularly when you're having a go at building something new or you don't quite know. To be honest, when Shawn and I first started Kids Invent Stuff, we didn't actually know if we could do the job we thought we could, because we were like, I'm sure we can, but obviously we'd never done it before, so we didn't know. And I think that's the same with any project. When you're making something, is you're going into it, and of course there's going to be things that you don't quite plan, or you know, curveballs that come, or, you know, things aren't quite the spec of material, whatever. And it's kind of taking those things a step at a time, and when things go wrong, just having another go. It's that resilience, kind of pulling yourself back up and going, right. But every single thing we build, at some point something goes wrong, something fails, something doesn't work. And I think it's kind of accepting that as part of the process. I mean, obviously within your job, you want to make sure everything does go right, because, you know, buildings, waterworks, all those bridges,
our tunnels, all the civil.
But this is it. Like, if you look back and you think all of your kind of processes of work are built on other people's successes and failures. And whenever you're inventing and designing something new, yes, you might have research, yes, you might have other things, but you're pushing boundaries, and so you're expecting things to go wrong.
Absolutely.
And then you're building on that and changing it. So a big part of our process is actually failure and things going wrong. And particularly, I mean, for Kids Invent Stuff, we're building working prototypes, essentially. So they're not commercial products. Lots of these things would need some really big steps taking to bring them, having brought a product that, I mean, Stair Study started off, the first prototype was a scaffolding pole and a block of wood. So having taken something through that, you know, that is very different to the product that we sell now. So I think, you know, it's all a process, and it's all kind of taking those stages, but just not being afraid when things don't quite go to plan, because sometimes the best things come out of things going wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, like some of the great inventions that we use today have come from someone's trial and error or accidental discovery.
Exactly.
Accidental discovery is a major one for science and technology space and engineering. But that's really cool. But I love to know the process. I'm going to drill you till I fully know the process. So you get kids send you images of their inventions.
Yes.
What happens then?
Okay, so Kids Invent Stuff is a YouTube channel where we bring to life kids' invention ideas. So primary age children, 4 to 11-year-olds, send us in their pictures and their videos of their invention ideas. Across the year, we tend to get usually about just over 10,000 invention ideas. So we get quite a lot.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you pick?
Well, Shawn and I have some very long conversations. We look at every single invention idea, whether we collect it in a school or whether it gets sent in. And then we kind of start to work out the sort of thing that we're going to build. So we obviously have some constraints. We have a few budget, time constraints. We try not to build something too similar back to back either. So, you know, if we just built a vehicle, we'll try and build something else, different components, different processes. We're trying to balance a few things as well. So we want something that has enough engineering in it. So when we're talking about, oh, we could build this, we're often saying, well, we could do it by taking something apart and like Frankensteining it back together with something else, or we could fabricate this. And, you know, we're talking about the different processes. And so usually there's some quite lengthy conversations between Shawn and I of like what we're going to build. And then we kind of think about, well, you know, what's the thumbnail going to be, for example, like can do we think we can build it? Yeah, Frankie just mentioned about the big toothpaste, so toothbrush. So we had a challenge around garden inventions, and we were sent in this amazing idea for a giant toothbrush that you could like, you know, clean your patio with and like trim the garden, like had different attachments on it.
Cool.
And so yeah, it was kind of thinking of, okay, well, you know, there's nothing that big, so how do you make it? Well, we should fabricate it. It's the perfect project for like welding, or, you know, actually creating, you know, the shape of the giant toothbrush and the head of it and everything. So again, it's kind of looking at what we think we're going to build, and then you're thinking, oh, is that a you know, what's the thumbnail for that? What's the title of that video? So you're constantly trying to juggle that quite early on.
Do you want to know
then
it's going to be exciting and look cool as well, actually?
I mean, most of the things we get sent in are exciting, but it's that kind of like the angle of like, okay, so is this the biggest Rube Goldberg machine ever made? Is this you know, has anyone ever made a 7-foot dinosaur that mops the floor before? Like, is it striking? Like, what is, do you know what I mean, like
7-foot dinosaur that mops the floor?
Yeah, well, we made a 7-foot dinosaur, mops the floor. You know, we I mean, the thing is, I love the idea of listing. I mean, we have built over 70 invention ideas, so I'm not sure I could attempt to list them all, but I like the idea of like listing them and people being like, what? And I kind of like the idea of adults being like, why? If I look at it and an adult's like, but why? I'm like, that's why we should build it. Because it's so much easier to talk to a young person about electronics and mechanics when you're talking about slime firing superhero suits, or you're talking about carrot cars, or something that's kind of a little bit, you know, that they're more excited about. And you know, instead of saying like, oh, this is a linear actuator, you're like, this is a linear actuator, it's a motor that pushes and pulls, and it's going to push a pie onto Shawn's head. Like, that's more exciting.
I can remember what that was straight away.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the thing, is like, you know, it's kind of having that kind of the education and teaching them about how you make things and engineering and showing tools, but also in a way that's, yeah, exciting, hopefully, and engaging.
So now you've got a bunch of like 10,000. You've looked at them, you thought thumbnails, how's it going to look? Which project we do before? What we're going to do now? So now you've picked one. How do you start? Like, what's the design process, the actual inventing? So let's say if a kid's watching, so how do I do the inventing bit and making it?
You know what? The hard bit is done for us because the kids come up with the idea. So they do the drawing. So we already have a rough blueprint. I always think the actual idea is the hard bit.
Yeah.
I think so, probably. I think sometimes there's, you know, there's certain ways of making something that fires, or a catapult or something, but actually having the idea, and that's something that comes really naturally to lots of kids that we as adults really struggle with. So I think it is that thing of like, right, we've got this blueprint, we want to make it look, you know, if they've drawn certain colors or whatever, we want to try and make it quite close to their idea. We have a few constraints in the sense of, I mentioned like time and budget, but Shawn and I actually live at opposite ends of the country. So I'm based in Sheffield, Shawn's based in Cornwall. So we set ourselves very kind of rigid time. So I will either go to Cornwall, he'll either come up to Sheffield, and we have a very set amount of time to build. So, you know, we have a rough idea of components. We kind of bring things in. We've now obviously collected lots of things that maybe we didn't use in other builds. So we have a whole array of different things. And yeah, then we start building. And usually the first few days are, I mean, we're obviously filming the process, but the first few days are usually just trying to work out, like, does this thing fit in here? How might that work? You know, is it an invention where we're fabricating parts from scratch, or is it an invention where we're taking things apart and reassembling them in a different way? And usually when we've kind of planned it, we know which bit we think is the riskiest bit to fail. That's not always the bit that fails, but we do have an idea. well, yeah, or maybe we're like, we're not entirely sure how this bit will go together until we start cutting it up, but we'll give it a go. So there is a lot of kind of unknown and just taking it a step at a time and trying to, because, you know, we'll keep talking and bouncing those ideas off each other, and we both have different strengths. So we both are neurodiverse, so it means that we both see things slightly differently. Yeah. So I mean, it's something that never really was a thing when I was growing up. I have a very good short-term memory, and that pretty much at school just meant like if I was doing well at school, no one really thought about it. But Shawn's dyslexic, and he actually found school was quite tricky at times, and Young Engineer for Britain winning that award allowed him to go to university and things like that. And he'd done a lot of work around like the Dyslexia Association in Cornwall and things like that. And when we started working together, we were working on something, and he was like, well, yeah, of course you will, because you're dyslexic. And I was like, am I? And he's like, yes. And I was like, oh, okay. We started talking about it, and he did a few assessments. At some point I will officially sit down and get a proper assessment, but we went through it all, and he's like, yep, that's a dyslexia, yep. And I was like, oh, okay. And so many things started to make sense, because there, you know, we have very different types of dyslexia. So Shawn's affects his short-term memory. Mine is a lot around kind of my spelling, and I will throw in, I'll think I've said something, but actually I've said something completely different, because, you know, a different word has jumped in there, or the way the words, even now, if I think about speaking, I'm like, I can't speak. So there's all these different things, but it allows me, I know, you know, I have pretty good spatial awareness, in the sense I can look at something and go, that will go together. So there's certain things, you know, we both look at things in different ways, and having built things together, we've worked out that's your strength, that's my strength. Do you know what I mean? And we kind of are
I love that.
to...
You nailed how to work together, but also like, I guess, your different strands of dyslexia. I think there's quite a lot of correlation between dyslexia and inventors. Like, there's a lot of stuff like made by dyslexia.
I mean,
so,
engineering
like, I feel
and
like all of the dyslexic
neurodiversity.
family, we're all like,
Yeah.
I'm like too. I feel like we're all quite good at creating, because think differently, right? That's what inventing is. Like, what would you define inventing, actually? Because you talked about how kids are really good at coming up with ideas, but what is that bit where, you know, if you're grown up and you're trying to invent, like, what would you say someone needs to do? How do they come up with that idea?
I mean, sometimes it's tricky to like force yourself to invent, but I'd probably start to pay attention to the world around you. I make a lot of notes of ideas that I see on my phone or things like that when I'm out and about. It's often in kind of weird and wonderful places. I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. Or you're talking to someone, or I'll often misread things and be like, oh, that's not what it says. That would be fun. Do you know what I mean? And things like that. So sometimes from some of my dyslexic stuff, I'll be like, oh, actually I got some great ideas. But I think as well, like, there's something within everyone that allows them to invent. I've just curated something with an exhibition with the National Archives, where we're looking at what is that spirit of invention. And there's something that, you know, if you want to, you know, look around the world and you see different either challenges, or you see something you're really excited and interested about, inventions come from lots of different places. So sometimes you're trying to improve something. So you're, you know, within this exhibition, we've got lots of things. So we've got things like Ryan, who's in it, he has a company where he was like, oh, children grow out of clothes really quickly, and that's a real big environmental thing when people are getting through so many clothes. So can we come up with clothes that grow with a child? And so he came up with Petit Plis. And then there's like, you know, Dr. Yumna had this, and she was actually a nanny at the time, and she was brushing the girl's hair, and she had like afro hair, and it was really quite tricky for her to condition it and things. And she was like, oh, if only there was a comb that did this. And so she came up with Nafasi, which is like a special comb which she's in the process of bringing to market. So a lot of the times it comes from us having challenges within our everyday life, and we're like, this could be better. And it's just being aware of that, and kind of taking that in and thinking, you know, so often we go about our lives and we do things because that's the way they've always been done. And when we start to question that, that's often where fun things appear.
So inventing isn't something that's like there or sat in a room. I was waiting to see how you talked about it and how you defined it, but inventing to you, and the examples you gave are people living life, but more consciously seeing things and seeing challenges and seeing things that could be cooler if done a different way.
Yeah, and also
it's
I
not
think people
weird and a different thing from what people are doing.
and it's also
Sometimes
it's
they need to
not
pay
for
more
like
attention.
it's not for like special people either. I think there's
Yeah,
a real big
exactly.
idea that actually there are these really special people. Like I used to look around the world as a child and I'd be like, oh, that's cool. But I used to think things were made by these like special group of people who were really clever and they got to make the things. Do you know what I mean? And you grow up and you're like, oh no, like actually I could make something, you could make something, we could, do you know what I mean? And it is that thing of like, you feel like it's a special club, and it's really not. There are so many things, everything around us has had some sort of input from an engineer or a scientist, you know, whether it's the design, the function, there's all sorts of things. And you'll know, as a civil engineer, literally everything is, you know, we're able to really impact the world around us by being an engineer, by being an inventor.
I love that. I love that. But for anyone listening and they want to go on the journey you've gone on, I mean, your journey started when you were 15, 16. You ditch uni, you get a product that's so successful. I mean, it's licensed around the world, Canada, US. Like, what would you tell them if they want to follow your path? They don't want to go to university. They want to be an inventor, engineer, and like you, very successful entrepreneur. What do they need to do? How do they need to go about it?
Well, I mean, I think they're just starting something, because this is it. I feel like everything, you know, even like my journey with Stair Steady there's had its ups and its downs, and it's, you know, it's definitely a roller coaster. I mean, people expect it to go like this, but actually when you look at how people, you know, nothing ever goes to plan or anything, does it, in that sense? And I think, but if you just start doing something, I think also as well, it's for me, I had this opportunity with this product and I was like, I want to get it to market. If that hadn't happened, I think I would give myself the advice to maybe, I don't know, go do an apprenticeship, go find out like, what am I actually, luckily, I love engineering, I love business, I love making things. I found the thing that I love. But if you haven't found that thing yet, then try lots of things to find that, because if you've got that passion, if you've got that real interest in something, then work doesn't feel like work in the same way. And I think just not being kind of affected by the people around you, so not being scared to take a different path. Like most of my friends went to university, you know, lots of people were really shocked when I didn't, but actually that was totally the best move for me. And yeah, and the same, you know, if you're doing something that's different, quite often people around you are like, oh, that's different,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that's bad. Does that mean? So it's, you know,
definitely.
it's really kind of yeah, just having a go, making a start, and just you know, if something goes wrong, don't let that stop you. Keep trying, keep trying. If there's, you know, if there's something you really want to do or you're really passionate about, you know, well, that's great, because to find the thing that you love is like such an awesome thing. But also, you know, it doesn't go smoothly. It's not like a linear journey. It's all over the place. So actually, I
I
think
love that you're stressing that part of it, because I mean, what I've heard so far is incredible. And you're basically saying to anyone, stop, do it. Find what the thing that you love by just going out there and giving yourself a shot of figuring it out. But actually, you're also really stressing this idea that nothing goes smoothly. And you've got to listen to yourself, because you're saying not listen to anyone around you because they're going to do different things, but trust your journey. And obviously, looking at you and studying your journey so far, doing a bit of a stalk, to me, it would look like a very clear trajectory. You're 15, you come with this great idea in resistant material. It goes to market, it goes around the world. You go and make more products, and then you do all these other amazing things, and, you know, giving back. So I guess it's not exactly the way it looks when you Google someone. I guess is the thing to
and
say, really.
I think that's it as well, is the fact that, you know, you have an idea. You know, when we first launched Stair Steady, within 6 months we'd lost the company that were going to fit it. They were a separate company, and it was like, oh my word, what do I do? And it's, you know, I talk to people who so often say, oh, it was how I reacted, or how I acted at that point where something went wrong. That's why this is a success now.
Mm,
And so often when
mm.
I talk to people, because I'm too fascinated by how do people get to do this, is particularly within certain industries, they're so new, there isn't a blueprint of how you do
Yeah,
this. And I'm
because what
like,
you do is so zeitgeisty. It's like such at the edge. I'm like, tell me the blueprint so
how
everyone
do
can
you do
understand.
it?
Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
And so often I'm like, how do you do it? What? And so many times people tell me about, well, I failed at this, and so I did this, or this didn't work out, and so I did that. And I think so often we see failure as like the door closing, or that's it. And actually, it can actually help us on our path. And I think there's just so many times where, you know, if you were to follow the line of like
mm,
how I thought things were going to, it's all over the place. And but actually the things that I learned along the way, and you know, you talked at the beginning about other businesses, you know, some of those businesses have not succeeded, but the things that I learned along the way, like the ability to edit and things like that, have been valuable in kids invent stuff and things like
mm.
that. So just because something either doesn't go to plan or doesn't work out doesn't mean that actually you have not gained something really valuable from that.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, I think it's really, really important. And with, you know, when I was younger, I felt like it was
Mm,
really quite tricky to talk about failure or things going wrong,
mm.
but actually the more you do it, the better you get at failing and the better you get at like carrying back on again. And because of Kids Invent Stuff, because we're building things and because things go wrong, you kind of, I think I saw a series on TikTok where a woman was like, I'm going to do something that scares me every day. I'm going to put myself in situations where people are likely to refuse me and say no. And then it won't be as scary. And that's such, you know, it's almost like that. What's the therapy where they like, I don't like spiders, and I keep thinking I should have that therapy where
I
they
can
make you
learn
hold them.
therapy,
Yeah,
throw
because
yourself into it, like do it.
because I'm
Well,
like,
that's
actually,
advice. You said just do it. That was the first thing you
yeah,
said
just
when I
do
asked
it.
you.
Because I think so often people, as we get
I mean,
older,
I'm not
we,
getting into a bath of spiders, but you know.
yeah, but I think, right, so I think I was so naive. I didn't have any responsibility when I started Scarcity, and I feel really lucky for that, because now I look back and think, oh, would I have done that? Would I have been brave enough to do that? But I think people can start something in their own way. You can start working on something in the evenings. You can, you
Hmm.
know, have a little, you know, test it, you know, building a prototype or whatever. But if you don't do anything, nothing will ever progress. I always see, like, if you imagine like a lake, and every time you're
Mhm.
doing something, you're throwing a stone in that lake, and you don't know where those ripples are going. The more things you do, the more stones you throw in that lake, the more ripples,
I
and
like
then
that.
from those ripples, you don't know where they're going to go. And that's, I suppose, how, yeah, I try and judge things. And I think as well, it was easier to do more of that when I was younger, because like now I have a child and other things. It's a bit trickier. I have to be a slightly more picky about what stones I throw in that lake, because I
Yeah.
know I have a limited amount of time and things. But I am so grateful that I just tried loads of things when I was younger, and I learned a lot about what I'm good at, what I enjoy, what I'm not good at, all those things. And they're so valuable. So if you don't know
Mhm.
those things about yourself, put yourself in situations to learn those
Go
things.
find out.
Exactly.
I read something that says your life's in two seasons: the season where you say hell yes to everything, and then the season where you only say yes to things that are hell yes.
Oh,
And
I
I think that
would
that's kind of what it
100%
sounds
agree
like
with
you,
that.
like the two parts, like the inventor very start of career, making like stair study and now building the foundation for like kids invent stuff and having those skills. Where I was like, I'm clearly you just going for it, absolutely nose diving into it, and then now I'm like, actually, is it a hell yes? Is it worth the investment? I love that. But we haven't talked about the making part, because this is what I'm
Yeah,
curious
yeah,
about. And this is one
yeah.
of the last things I want to talk about before I ask you your three wisdoms to share. Though I know we've talked about those wisdoms, you have given me a wealth of knowledge today. It's been incredible. But there's one that I'm really interested in, because every project's different, right? So you're using different technical skills. So how do you first of all equip yourselves, you and Shawn equip yourself each time to hit a new challenge? Because obviously each project is different. You make entirely different things. And some of the stuff I've seen, I was like, there is no entirely different skill sets involved. How do you guys upskill yourselves? How do you do it safely? And how would other people wanting to make things, how do they go about it in a safe way, obviously?
Yeah, so I think we we started off, if you look at some of our earlier projects, we didn't have some of the more fancier tools and things like that. I mean, when we first started, I didn't know how to weld or anything like that. My kind of electronics and coding stuff was quite basic, and just by different projects, bit by bit, building on those skills. And I suppose, if you look back on the beginning videos and some of the techniques and things we used, very different to stuff now. But at the same time, I think it comes with having a go. Like, no one's going to jump in to the deep end and just, like, I don't know, start fabricating something that, you know, they've never welded, they don't know how this works. They're not going to go out and just buy a welder. To be fair though, I do think lots of tools have become a lot cheaper. It's a lot more accessible. There's a lot more offers. Like, if you want to, you know, get a drill, even welders, like, you can get some amazing welders for a couple of £100. I feel like it's become like a
Christmas list this
yeah,
year.
do you know what I mean? Like, if it's something you really wanna do, then, you know, there's some really great kit out there that is way more accessible, I think, than when I was growing up. Like, I kind of feel like, you know, the tools and even things like 3D printing and stuff like that, we are very lucky because we work with great companies. We've bought stuff along the years. We've been sent things, so we have a whole range of things. But at the same time, even with some of those things, like, we don't know how to do everything. We don't know how to use everything. Like, yeah, I literally so I remember watching Learn to Weld. Yes, you do. Because that's the thing. I filmed the first time I ever had a go at welding with my dad. I welded something galvanized, which you shouldn't do. And then Lincoln Electric were like, let us teach you. And even then, like, I'm a hobbyist. There are, even watching this now, there are some of the amazing ambassadors who are way better at welding than I am. You know, I want to teach myself TIG welding. I remember the first time that I'd used a grinder in a very long time, like a big grinder, was to cut the roof off a car. I mean, I felt so badass, but it was also the pressure of, like, oh my God, we got a car, we were putting a scissor lift in the back of it, we had to, like, cut the roof off. And one of our sponsors sent us, like, this massive grinder, and I was like, yeah. And I think sometimes it's just, you know, obviously you've got to be safe, you've got to wear the PPE and all that sort of thing. But I think so often we think of tools as being so much scarier than anything else. And I often,
I'm gonna go.
no, but I remind people, like, so yes, tools have heat and they have spinny things. So do lots of things in your kitchen. You don't ever say to someone, don't cook that because the frying pan's hot. Don't use them. Do you know what I mean? Don't make that smoothly. The blender's got moving bits. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, yes, you can do damage with power tools. You can do damage with the stuff in your kitchen. But we don't ever, do you know what I mean? We seem to put people off using tools.
Our risk perception is so different.
Yeah.
So, good challenge. You're really challenging that person.
Do you know what I mean? And so often if you walk around your house and you see, I mean, particularly the kitchen's such a big thing, and you're like, hang on. You know, we're quite happy to have, you know, a fryer with really boiling, you know what I mean? There's so many things in our kitchen. I feel like they're kind of on par when it comes to the risk, as long as you're careful and you're sensible. And, you know, if you're going to drill a hole in something, clamp it down. You know, if you're going to use your pillar drill, don't use gloves on it. There's some basic things, you know, don't wear gloves while you're using your pillar drill. There's some basic things. And I think, yeah, JP says, respect the tool, use PPE. And I think that's it, is, you know, and start small. That confidence comes by having a go, building up. When we first started Kids Invent Stuff, I hadn't used tools properly in ages. And it was that shock of, like, oh yeah, right, we need to, this is the thing I need for this. We need to remember how to do that. And the more you do it, the more confident you'll become. And even now there's things where, particularly because we film making stuff, you're kind of putting yourself in a spotlight of, like,
more pressure, right?
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, I'll look at stuff and think, oh, is that, you know, that's not 100% maybe the right way to do it, or that's bodging it a little bit. But then I don't know.
That's part of the process, I guess, isn't it? Like you said, that's part of
and you know, sometimes you do things, you think, oh yeah, that did not go wrong. It did not go right. That's completely the wrong way to do it. And you learn, and next time you're like, do you remember last time we did this? We should definitely do it a different way. And I think that that's kind of, you know, no one's expecting you to know everything, but there is a whole wealth of knowledge on the internet. Most people, if you want to start a project, I don't know. So I made a project. This wasn't on Kids Invent Stuff. I wanted to have a go at making a DIY saw stop. So For anyone who doesn't know, a table saw, a saw stop. So a table saw. So you have a table with a saw in the middle of it, spins, you put your wood through it.
Cool.
And there's a product called saw stop, which when you get your finger or something near it, it will recognize that and it will stop the saw. Very clever piece of tech, quite expensive. You can't really buy them over here. And I thought, I want to make one of those at home. It's a bit of a silly video, but essentially, you know, I was like, okay, well, how can I find, you know, I need a circuit that's going to recognize when I come close. What can I use to test that? Well, you can literally set up with an Arduino and a coin a little touch button that, you know, it's really simple. And I Googled it. I was like, who's done this? Great. There's some code. Fab. I can load the code on. So many things, you know, people have already had a go at doing part of it. You can Google it. You can ask questions. And I think that's the thing. People are scared because they don't feel like they know everything. And actually, you don't need to know. Do you know what I mean? You can have a little look. You can have a Google, and then you can just give it a little go. And as long as you're not doing, I mean, there are some sketchy things on the internet, but you know, as long as you're, well, there's a few projects where people have like used very high power electricity to like engrave wood and things like that, and you know, bits of, yeah, anyway, there's certain things where you're like, I wouldn't do that. But most projects, like, there's some really great resources. So Instructables, if you've got a child or you're thinking, I want to make something, I don't have a clue where to start, go to a website called Instructables, click on it. There are Instructables. Yeah, there are loads of projects, all sorts of things, from baking, crafting, making stuff, and people share their projects. They'll often share code and things like that. And you can just be like, oh, I want to build this birdhouse that has a camera in it that records the birds. Cool. And they'll take you step by step on how to make it, you know, or you can look online and be like, I want to make a patio or some flower beds, and there'll be a video on YouTube of how to make it. And I think so often we can just learn from that and then just having a go.
I love that. And you're right. I think we're probably in that one time in history where there are so much resources, and actually the innovation isn't doing it first, it's doing it different, or bringing that odd project and that odd project, as you fabricating projects, right? Using two things and bring them together. Like, that's the innovative part. That's the inventing. But actually, a lot of stuff is out there. So I guess the lesson for us all is go to Instructables and do a project.
Yeah, or you know, just have a go. Or, you know, start following someone on YouTube or TikTok that's doing something you think is cool. I think quite often people feel like, and you see it a lot within like home renovations, particularly. It's an interesting time because obviously the cost of stuff is going up. So for people, this is usually a time where people start to get a bit more creative because material costs go up anyway. But then obviously bringing people in to do certain jobs costs more. Yeah, so people start to learn about the world around them. And they're like, oh, I want this table. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for this table. I'm going to learn how to make it. And they're usually the points where people start to get those skills, is out of frustration or out of a lack of a certain resource.
My first home, I literally YouTubed how to like do most of the renovations.
Yeah, exactly.
From electric. So I do not touch electrics, but I know you touch electrics because you're a pro.
But even then, sometimes I don't. No, sometimes I don't touch a light. No, I think as well, like, everyone, you need to like know. You know, for me, I would say my strengths are in mechanical, and I know some things, but I have definitely managed. I mean, I've set a few things on fire before. You know,
that's my concern. I
have a fire extinguisher.
Me and fire. I learned this when I was a teenager, when I was doing one of those. You know, you get to experience STEM, and Imperial London College did the whole thing, and I was like, I learned that me and electrics have fun. So I that's why I always think it's so cool when you're making projects and you're not just like mechanical, you're doing electrics. I've seen you doing like really cool things. I'm like,
but I think as well, there's like, it's like, I don't know, safety knowledge. I recently did something and I like had the chat, like, do I use a 12-volt battery for it? Do I run it off mains? And usually I'd be like, let's go with a 12-volt battery. But for this project, mains was better. And I think it's just about doing a bit of research and, you know, thinking, you know, there's so much information out there. Do you know what I mean? It's just about getting
to do it safely, right?
Exactly.
No, it's still daunting, but I love that, and I think that's an incredible message to just get out there, use all the resources that are at our fingertips, and figure out how to have a go at things.
Yeah, and not everyone knows everything. Even if you talk to like people who are like, God, they're so skilled, they must know everything. They don't. They don't.
I mean, when it came to like, I would have thought you could make anything. If I set you a challenge to make anything, I'm pretty sure you could do it.
I mean, I'd give it
I'm
a
pretty
go, but that's the thing.
sure.
I'm like,
Everyone in the
Paul,
comments
Ruth's
agree.
never done it right.
Ruth has never done it wrong.
Oh,
See?
thanks, Paul, but it's a lie. But thanks, I'll pay you later. Thanks, mate.
I feel like we should actually, there should be a fun thing that comes out of this. We get everyone to set you the most challenging challenge anyone in mechanical engineering inventing space has ever been set. And you have like 48 hours to do it. I feel like that would be epic.
Oh, Paul,
Do
look what
the
you
grand
started.
challenge.
Oh,
Ruth takes on the
great.
biggest challenge. Record breaking.
This only usually ends badly. I did have an idea of coming up with ideas when I was drunk and then building them. I think actually Paul might have influenced that.
Drunk build.
But yeah, well, I'll not use the power tools drunk because obviously that would be irresponsible. But you know, yeah, I think it's always fun. I mean, my little boy obviously sees lots of things appear from this workshop and does have a very unrealistic view. So he will like hand me bits of bolts he's found off the floor, like for the robot, or like a peanut, and he's like, we're going to turn into a robot, and I'm like, wow, okay. Maybe not.
It's mad crazy. I love that. So what are your final 3 wisdoms to share with everyone? 3 bits that you'd be like, if I could only share 3 bits of wisdom, this would be what I think everyone needs to know.
Okay, just do it. Like make a start, even if it's like 1%. Like I think just do. One of the best things I ever did was I was like, right, I'm gonna do this project and I'm just gonna do 1% every day, just a tiny little bit, and in 100 days I'll have done the full thing. And that's a great way to start, because quite often you do more than 1%, but just do something that's heading towards the goal that you want to do. I suppose the other thing is around, you know, kind of throwing those stones in the lake, taking the opportunities, like starting those. You know, I was recently talking to a friend. They make really cool things. They've ended up doing something they never expected because essentially they started sharing and making videos. And I'm like, that's such a good example of like, you never know where something's going to end up. So yeah, keep having, you know, keep doing those things, throwing those rocks in, you know, heading in a trajectory, but also just don't give up when you fail. Like, 'cause it's going to happen, or something's not going to work out or whatever. It's actually about how you deal with those moments that are more important than how you deal with the successes. It's about how you know, dust yourself back up after something's gone wrong, because it's going to happen. It happens to everyone. Stuff doesn't go to plan. So, you know, you're allowed to have that moment where you get upset or you're cross about it or whatever, but then it's like, right, let's keep going.
Happens next?
Yeah, what happens next? Because, you know, they're usually, when I talk to people about what they do, or, you know, that they're working on something really cool, that's the moment that really, you know, shaped their trajectory as it was. So I suppose they're the things.
Incredible.
I would also add the caveat of like an extra bit, because I feel like the first 2 are like kind of joined together. But I'd say think about the people that you spend your time with, right? Find your circle. A very, very long time ago, I heard the thing of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I thought that was really interesting. But I definitely think the thing that I love is like within the maker community, it's like I found my people. And that is really inspiring, because you always have people to talk to and to, do you know what I mean? So it's like finding your people, because actually that can really help move you in the right direction as well. Because if you're spending time with people who are always pessimistic, they aren't supportive, they're not challenging you, they're not, do you know what I mean? That massively affects you. Yeah. And it's like, you know, if you've got, you know, that group of people who are challenging you, are really like, you're each kind of helping each other along, that makes such a difference.
Wow, that's good advice. Good advice. And I just think that's such a perfect 4 things to share with people. You know, do the thing, absolutely throw the stones out there. You don't know where the ripples are going to be. Get up from failure, dust yourself up. Come on, you can do it. And pick your circle. And clearly you're selling that the only circle you should have are a bunch of makers.
Oh,
if
yeah.
Anything from this call,
people.
And everyone in the comments joining and being so supportive, it tells me the maker community is where it's at. I'm joining you guys now, right? Okay?
Yeah, come along, honestly. Come make something. Come to the workshop. Come do some welding.
Love that.
We'll build
It's been
something.
incredible. Ooh. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
do the challenge
genuinely, come
together.
along. Yeah.
I have to start my tools.
Love it. Come along. We'll make something.
I'm actually really excited about that. I'm going to take you up on that offer because it sounds really sick. But thank you so much for one of the most. I mean, we've just had such a fun conversation. I didn't know it was going to go like this. I love it. It's been so much fun.
Oh, well, I remember the first time that I met you at the North Star thing, you were speaking and you just were like a whirlwind. It was amazing. Like, it was towards the end of the day and we were all just like, oh, and then you come in and it's like a breath of fresh air. So yeah, I love it. Love it.
Yeah. We've both got beans. It's quite good fun, actually, isn't it? Two beanie people in the same room.
Yeah, I think we might have scared them when we were judging Big Bang because we were like, oh, this is so exciting. And everyone's like really
so
professional.
excited.
We're like, ah.
I was fangirling. I was like, I'm the biggest fan of this kid. I think you're going to challenge the world. I was like so pumped. There was no calming us down. I think we were both egging each other on.
I like it. Love it.
Really good. But I think we're going to do one of these again. I think we're going to do a make. So maybe that's what we do. We set ourselves a challenge.
Make something.
What do we make?
I don't know. Well, don't let Paul choose is all I'm saying because I've already seen some of Paul's suggestions, so Paul can't choose.
No, the chat will help us choose. We'll come up with something together. But I've had the best time today. Thank you so much for joining me, Ruth. You're incredible. It's been fun. And let's do this again. Let's make some stuff. But I think the final word, everyone, we're all inventors. We just got to tap in, pay attention to the world around us, and see the thing that we're going to help make the world better by doing. Thank you, Ruth.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. Have a good rest of your evening.
I will. It's been fun. Best time. Bye.
Bye.
Wasn't that fun?